A new Associated Press report finds that police and security agencies worldwide are using technology intended for coronavirus-related contact tracing to actually surveil for purposes beyond COVID-19. According to the AP, governments in China, Jerusalem, India, and Australia have been using people's personal data, including their health information, facial recognition software, and home addresses, to stop activists and ordinary people from traveling. They also targeted marginalized communities.
The AP's year-long investigation uncovered that this personal information was shared with spy agencies at times. This finding harkens back to 9/11, after which national security needs and privacy rights became a delicate balancing act that proved difficult to achieve. Fast forward to 2020, and authorities seem to be keeping in place security measures beyond what they signaled, which was to flatten the COVID curve, sacrificing people's privacy. This is a huge story, and look, it has echoes, of course, of this ongoing discourse around the FBI, the CIA, the radar I did yesterday about Tucker Carlson, opining on who really killed JFK. I mean, it all feeds into, I think, a really legitimate distrust of these surveillance national security institutions that are anti-democratic and beyond the reach of we're not even talking about like democratic control, but any kind of transparency at all.
And I'm reminded, I think the analogies to the war on terror are very apt in the COVID case, especially and how the media kind of just really went along with it at the time. Not the media is not a uniform. Obviously, there were a lot of people in libertarian and progressive media asking questions then, as there are now. But the mainstream media just kind of rubber stamping and endorsing and saying, oh, but the government says this is really important stuff, and there are bad guys out to get us. So sorry if you have to wait a little longer at the airport, but people hate America. So you have to deal with that. It was that same kind of thing about COVID. People are dying. So, you know, maybe you can just, tell everyone whether you're vaccinated and what your health information is like and put all that in a central database that the government said they're going to keep private. So what's even the big deal? Yeah. And you were tarred as some crazy person for thinking there was something a little off about that in both cases. And in both cases, now we're looking like, how much of that was really necessary? Yeah. And things linger. We are still, I complain about this every time we get even anywhere near the subject because it wounds me psychically, but we still take off our shoes and our belts and everything to get on planes for no reason whatsoever. No one believes that it does anything to contribute to safety.
And they're not doing this in other parts of the world, and they're not, terrorist attacks haven't gone off the charts because they allow you to keep your shoes on when you go through the medical detector in other parts of the world.
And they miss things all the time. People bring knives and guns and all sorts of things. The TSA misses things routinely. They miss huge numbers of objects, but it doesn't matter because you can't hijack a plane when the cockpit doors are locked, as they are now. That was what we really learned from 9/11.
Look, I'm the kind of person who, despite having a lot of curiosity about genealogy, refuses to take one of those tests because I don't want my DNA out there somewhere. So I have been very hesitant about a lot of this. And of course, look, we've also been talking about some of the surveillance implications of the Amazon doorbells. And the way that this is going to happen is that these new technologies are going to be trotted out as technologies of convenience. They're going to say, oh, just send your blood work in and we can get it tested this way. We can put this camera on your front door and you can see if anybody steals your packages. Embed this chip into your arm and you can check out at the grocery store more quickly. Elon Musk wants to do whatever beaming into people's heads and put chips in people's brains and those kinds of things. And there is an appeal to the convenience. And we know how much we'll give up for convenience because we're already taking, yes, I agree to all of these contractual terms every time we open an app and update our software just so that we can get through and keep using Instagram or whatever. And so at some point, it's not going to just be human beings, I think, standing up and realizing, no, I don't want to click on this, no, I don't want to accept this, for there to be some kind of check on what goes on with our private information. We've already proven as a society that we can't, on an individual basis, be trusted to draw these lines in the sand for ourselves. So I wonder what you make of this, Robby. Is this an area where there needs to be some kind of legislative intervention to protect our privacy rights in a way that I think they've gone much farther toward doing in Europe?
Well, think about this. I mean, we've been seeing, we've been learning in the Twitter files, much more widespread, routine conversations between the FBI and Twitter. And we know they're happening with Facebook too and other social media companies about various subjects, about what's going on the platform. So what do you want to bet the FBI has conversations with Amazon?
I feel like we already know that.
Well, but what if they say, what if they say, hey, we would love that, some Ring video. We think that might be interesting to us. Could you give us this? And you can understand, probably like Twitter, the first couple times they're like, no, we're not going to give you that. And then the FBI says, okay, so you feel like you're going to be responsible for Russia hijacking our elections if you're not going to give us this. This is on your conscience. You're totally fine with Vladimir Putin making Trump the next president. That's what you're okay with? Maybe you'll rethink about giving us that video footage. And what we saw is that other companies caved when it was put like that.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't seem that Amazon even needs that level of coercion. I think we might have covered this a couple of months ago, a few months ago, that Amazon already gives Ring photos, video rather, to police without the owner's permission.
In criminal investigations, right? I think it's just in criminal. Well, I mean, people should not be satisfied with that answer if.
Yeah, it happened at least 11 times so far that this year, or that was as of July of 2022.
And if they're subpoenaed for the information, they're going to give it up, obviously.
Obviously, no. This is again. Think about the posture of this. This isn't someone who collected the information, giving up their own personal information. Yeah. This is a third-party tech company that happens to have access to the information. This is akin to someone going into your phone and saying, well, here's the text messages. You don't have to subpoena me, Briahna Gray, to get your text messages. Just subpoena Verizon, and Verizon will take care of it. It can be completely happening without my knowledge.
Because as soon as you take the photos on that phone, that company has them.
Anymore.
You don't keep them.
Exactly.
Nothing is private that people think are private, which is something we're just going to have to grapple with as a society. Because, again, we have to be realistic about how hard. We're not going to unwind a lot of these things substantially. But sure, you talk about legislative fixes. Yeah, I would totally support a law structured to prevent the FBI from being able to collect that kind of information through Amazon or Apple or whatever it is, rather than through you. That is something that's in our power to do, because we can hamstring the FBI through legislation much more easily than we can hamstring Amazon, in fact. And we should do that.
When this came up before, I think it was Facebook that was trying to avoid
that abortion. It was the woman. It was a young woman who had a not above board abortion, I think, and they would dispose of the body.
She was in a country in a state where abortion would have been illegal given how far the pregnancy had progressed or something. And she, I think, obtained abortion drugs over the internet. I think that was the fact pattern. And what Facebook's issue was, they were trying to actually not have to be pulled into these kinds of cases by taking themselves out of the process. So they wouldn't actually have access. They're basically encrypting end to end.
Yes.
So they can plausibly say to federal officials, we couldn't help you even if we wanted to. You've got to go the old-fashioned route, which I think is frankly smart, because in that case, Facebook was concerned as a company that's kind of perceived as left-leaning, of looking like they were giving up information to the feds about a woman who was doing something that most people in the country presume to be a protected right. They didn't want to be in the middle of that. The optics are different in some of these criminal justice contexts. But they are being put, these platforms are being put in a position of making all kind of substantive, ethical, criminal justice, et cetera, decisions that are not being legislated, are not being decided on by any democratic process, which have huge implications for the civil liberties and civil rights of the people involved.
And we're sitting back and letting it happen.
Exactly.
We're sitting back and letting law enforcement craft these policies between them and tech companies, crafting these policies together, not on an even playing field whatsoever, because the tech companies have the threat of what law enforcement will do to them if they don't comply, or what the media will say about them in the public. They're, again, eroding our elections. So it's very worrying. Very worrying. And what they can do with our COVID information, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. Well, we'll have more Rising for you right after this.